Hello and welcome to today's episode of Dream Business, Dream Life. Today I'm joined by Hayley Baxter. Hayley is the founder of Corbar Accounting, also known as the off-grid accountant, and I have no doubt we're going to explore the reason behind that name shortly. Hello, Hayley, how are you?
Hi Emma, I'm very well, thank you. How are you today?
I am good, thank you. I am good. So, as ever, Emma likes to dive straight in. Let's dive straight in. Tell us all about you, why you started your business.
Okay, so I started my business. Probably my story is probably quite a common one in some ways. So I worked for many years in industry. I worked for a large contract catering business. I That's where I qualified as an accountant, and I worked up from junior roles to more senior roles during my time. And I think I just became a little bit disillusioned with the corporate world, as many people that start their own business have done. And I just wanted to try different way of living, a different way to run my life, I suppose. In a funny way, I've always wanted to run my own business from being very young. When you sort of play make believe games and things like that when you're a child, I used to always play running a business, which sounds really sad as an adult to say that, but I did. And so I think I've always wanted to do it. Um, but it never quite happened for me. So when I left the corporate world in 2019, I didn't leave with the expectation of starting a business. I just left because I'd had enough. I needed a break, which is what I did. And then I sort of accidentally fell into starting a business because people knew that I was an accountant, knew that I had some downtime, and asked me, will you help me with this bit of bookkeeping? Will you help me with this tax return? And I realized without all that kind of corporate pressure there, um, I actually really liked doing things with numbers, being an accountant, helping people with their business finances. So it went from there.
It's amazing, isn't it? And I think, as you say, it's not a unique story, is it, in the sense that people, are in corporate, something just isn't quite right. You can't always pinpoint that, can you? But something isn't quite right, and you know this that you want something more. And but I love that you took that leap of sort of like enough is enough. I need to do something differently without actually having a plan. But that's quite a scary decision, right?
Yeah, I think at the time it probably didn't feel scary. I think I was quite at a point where I was probably, um, I don't like the word burnout because I think it's overused, but that's probably what I was. I think I was probably quite stressed. I was probably um, just not, I suppose, just not coping with things really. And I think I'd just had enough. And so at the time, it probably didn't feel scary because I think it felt harder to stay than to leave, really. And luckily, I was in a position where, um, that I could. I don't have children or anything like that, so it's just me and my husband. He had a good job, so we had enough kind of financially to be able for me to do that without worrying about things, which, it was lucky in a way for me to be in that position because I know some people perhaps wouldn't have had that luxury. So, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, excited. So being an accountant then, being financially savvy, does that mean starting a business is easy because you know how to manage your money?
Oh my gosh, no, most definitely not. Being an accountant and managing other people's finances is totally different from running your own business, 150%. I think running a business is a massive continual learning curve. And I think even when you think you've got it cracked, you actually haven't because something else just comes along that you've not dealt with before. So I think it definitely made the finance piece easier, i.e., because I knew I could do my tax return and I knew how to do that and I knew how to do bookkeeping. So I suppose that side, because I know how to do that and I'm trained how to do that, that side was easier. But actually, that's as you know, Emma, that's only a part of a whole wheel of what is running a business. Um, so it made that a bit easier, but it didn't make the rest of it easier. Um, And it's
Yeah.
really interesting though, because I was actually saying this to somebody else earlier, being an accountant um, and running your own business, you at first I didn't keep on top of my finances. I'll be, being really honest, and that sounds really stupid, especially, from like what I talk about now and how I advise other people to be in their business. Not doing it myself was a huge oversight on my part. Um, but so what I do now is I make myself my best client, and I make sure that my numbers are done very early on in the month, day to day throughout the month, so that I do know where I'm up to and I'm sort of walking the talk and practicing what I preach. So even that was a learning curve to go through, even though I knew that being on top of your numbers was really important. I didn't necessarily do that from the very beginning for myself, which again, that in itself was a learning curve.
And I think that's the same with a lot of things, isn't it? I'm a business strategist. I help people to, to make sure they've got all of the things in place in the business all of the time. Does that mean my business is perfect and all my ducks in a row? Absolutely not, because I think sometimes we focus on our clients, we focus on all of the things that we actually forget to do it for ourselves. So I think,
Mm.
that's a great tip you've shared there that goes way beyond accounting. It's not just about your numbers, is it? It's about putting yourself first and actually doing the things in your business first to enable you to be stronger to help other people. So I love that you've done that. But yeah, I think there's also something in there that when you come from a corporate role, it's almost like you start your own business, and you may have experienced this yourself. You start your own business and you want to not do any of the things that you had to do in corporate. I don't know if you experienced any of that.
Yeah, I think I did a little bit. I think it takes you a while to adjust to the mindset of, well, actually, I can do this my own way. I don't need to do it like that, which is ultimately what you're saying, isn't it? So that it did, and some things adjusted quicker than others. I think the 9 till 5 mindset, even today, I struggle with a little bit. Like if I'm not at my desk by 9:30, I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna get in trouble, or like a bit almost panicky. And I have to like stop and say to myself, well, no, Hayley, you don't, it doesn't matter. Um, so there's definitely a mindset shift there that is a process. And 5.5 years later, I'm still um some of it, for some of the things, is still being processed. It's not always instantaneous, I don't think.
No, absolutely not. And I think, when you've always done something a certain way, we sort of get conditioned a little bit, don't we? That is the way that you have to do things. And I think, we
Yeah.
both talk about that not being the case and about being able to do things your own way. But
Mm.
actually saying it and doing it are two completely different things. It's not something you can just do. Can't wake up one morning and say, that's it, I'm going to do all of my things. It's trial and error, isn't it?
It is, it definitely is. And I can remember a really funny example actually of, well, I don't know if it's funny, but um during during the journey that is life, my husband and I ran a greengrocers for a short amount of time, which is a totally random. And he was kind of running the business and I was obviously doing the finances and I still had my corporate role at this time. Um, and I implemented all these like cash procedures for him, like all these things that he had to do at the end of every day.
I
And
bet
he
he
was like,
loved
"Hey,
you.
he was like, Hayley, I'm not standing there counting a bag of 1p's. I just don't care that much. If I'm out by a pound, I'm out by if I'm out by £20, I don't care." So like, and again, that's that corporate mindset shift. That I was like, but you've got to do that. And he's like, well, why? It's my own money. It doesn't, how I look after it's up to me. So yeah, it's definitely a journey.
Absolutely. And I think there's something in that, isn't there, in terms of, people that start their own business who quite often haven't had to ever deal with the finances of business, especially if they come from corporate or haven't been brought up in like a family that are used to running a business. I think the mindset shift from, money in, money out type thing, wages come in, you know exactly how much you're getting every month, you can budget for all of these type of things, to suddenly doing that on your own, that's quite daunting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is daunting, and I think just that bit of not knowing that you've got that regular piece coming in every single month, that bit can be really, really actually quite scary for some people, and worrying, particularly if like I've already talked about in my situation, I had, I had a backup, whereas I know that some people don't, and I think that's even more heightened in that situation. Um, but I also think there's two sides. There's two sides to it because I think that having a buffer is great, but I also think it can hold you back. Whereas if you've got to, if you're like, well, actually, I've got to make X amount of money this month to pay my bills, or I don't pay my bills, that inside you is a very different feeling from, well, I've got my backup. It doesn't really matter. I'll just do it in my own time, in my own, that in itself creates a very different. And whilst I'm not saying anything's right or wrong, I suppose, sometimes having a cushion can, doesn't necessarily help you push your business forward in as much as the way it would do if you didn't have that cushion,
Yeah,
if
and
that makes sense.
that makes complete sense with me, and I totally resonate with that because when I walked away from my previous business, I didn't initially walk completely away. I walked away as in dropped the revenue down massively, hugely amounts, but I kept a little bit of something going because that was like my cushion, my comfort blanket. So when I started this business, I didn't actually need to earn the money because I knew I'd got the money coming in. So I knew everything was covered. I knew everything was safe, but that business was draining me. But it took me a while to realize that actually, if I just shut that down and I'm left with this, right, Emma, you've got to do this now, it made a massive difference. And the day
Yeah.
I made that decision, I really started to up my game in terms of focusing on this business and actually the growth within this business rather than just thinking, I'm okay if this doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So I absolutely resonate with that. 100% resonate with that. That sometimes that cushion isn't always a positive thing, is it? Although
Yeah.
equally, I think even now I'd sit uncomfortably if I didn't know I'd got a comfort blanket. So if things didn't go to plan, that I hadn't got something to
Yes.
fall back on. But equally, I'm not using that as an excuse for not doing that.
Not. Yeah.
Yeah, excuse is a
Yeah. Yeah.
harsh
No,
word there, isn't it? But for me,
it
it was
is,
an
but
absolute excuse.
yeah, it is, and it is, and I think linking that with some of the businesses that I work with, what you find sometimes is, and it's a similar thing but slightly different, is that business owners have a successful business and they're doing lots of things and they're surviving month to month. They've got cash in the bank, so they're not worried. Their heads down. They're doing what they're doing. But actually they don't really know what's going on with those numbers. And because, they've got enough money in the bank to pay everything, they can pay themselves, they can invest in what they can kind of do all that, which is great. It's great to have a business that you've got to that point. But sometimes when you go under the hood and you get into the nitty gritty of the bonnet, there are other things going on that you can't see just from that. And it amazes me how many businesses, quite large businesses, that I'm not necessarily just talking about small businesses, £1 million revenue plus businesses, sometimes are not. They still don't really understand what's going on in their numbers because they're okay because they've got enough money in the bank to pay everything. They can crack on. And when you start going a little bit deeper into things, it unlocks more and it helps them then deliver more. And be able to do more with their business. And it's a similar sort of thing. Sort of people burying their head a little bit because they don't need to worry about it because it's all okay. But they don't really know if it's all okay. They just know that at the end of every month there's money in the bank and they can pay everything. Um,
Absolutely. And you've got me again. I don't know, am I your ideal client? Everything you're saying is like, I've done that, got that t-shirt. And absolutely, I get that. With my e-commerce business, that was a seven-figure business. The revenue was coming in. I had no idea what was going on with money. I just knew that the money was there, so I could keep doing what I needed to do. So I never focused on that at all. And I think that for me was a massive learning in terms of moving forward. But I think there's a thing there, isn't there, that says, depending on where you're at in your business, there's almost like different things that you need to be thinking of from a financial financial perspective, right at the beginning, it's just about getting some money in, isn't it? You know, you need to earn some money to pay the bills and everything else. But when that starts to happen, there's a lot of other things that you need to do that actually look at that money as it's about building wealth, isn't it? Not just about but not just about having money coming in and not having a clue what's going out. It's about making that money work better for you. Do you agree that there's different things you need to do depending on where your business is at?
Yeah, I definitely, and in some ways that's not just about I suppose not about just about business owners, that's just about an adult earning money. Um you you yeah, you definitely, depending on what stage you are or where you are, what's going on in your life, you I would always suggest that thinking about utilizing the money that you've got in the best way, not just for today, but for tomorrow, is definitely great advice. And that will look like different things for different people. And I think coming back to specifically talking about business owners, what's really um, helpful for them is at the very beginning, actually, if you can get to grips with the kind of financial process side of it, when you are in that almost fight or flight mode where you're just trying to get going and trying to get money in. But if you can actually get to grips and embed financial processes at that point, when you in some ways you've got the time to do it, what that means is as soon as you can see that you're kind of accumulating that money, or things are getting a bit more steady state, or you've got an excess of cash perhaps, for whatever it is, you can very quickly know that and understand how much of a cash buffer you need in the business today, and then actually have you got cash that you could, you know, invest or put into a high rate interest savings, whatever it might be, whatever that investment might look like. Um, but actually, what you find is people don't do that because they start a business and they're only small and they don't really need software. They don't really need an accountant. They can do it all on a spreadsheet or on a piece of paper, however people choose to do it. But what happens is then the business grows, you get busy, you haven't embedded those processes, and then before you know it, you're kind of 3 or 4 years down the line and you're just in this kind of muddle state and you don't really know what's going on. So I think it's almost more important to start those processes as early as possible, even if you don't think you need them, because that is only going to stand you in good stead whatever happens. And even if you only, your aspiration. So I, like you, Emma, I talk about um, helping business owners live the life they dream of. That's how, I started a business because I wanted to live a life that I wanted to live, not just uh, I don't like the word normal, but you know what I mean, not just like something that is like conforming to what normal people do. And I know that you're the same, and that's why many people start a business. But then what happens is you become a prisoner of the business because you don't really know what's going on, you don't understand what's going on, and you can't achieve that life because you've lost sight of what you actually need to get to deliver that. Um, and going back to my point, sorry, even if your aspiration is to be never have more than you in your business, and it's a lifestyle business, but you want to earn this much money, or you want to work 3 days a week, or whatever it is, even having those financial processes and then from the very beginning, it's still going to help you achieve that, because you're just going to have insights into everything, and you're going to be able to see what's going on, and you'll know when you get to that point. And you'll also be able to, you know, it gives you the levers that you can pull to change things in your business to make sure that it's giving you what you actually want it to give you. I mean, your network's huge, Emma. All of the business owners, how many of those people that you've spoken to over the years, probably including yourself from some of the conversations that we've had, that you're just stuck in this business with this dream that you once had, that and it's really a nightmare, it's not a dream.
No, it's not. And ultimately, whether you are a money motivated person or not, the money is the thing that enables you to have that dream, isn't it? Whether
It
that
is.
whether that's, £100 or £1 million, it doesn't make any difference. But ultimately, the money is the thing that is going to enable you to do the things that you want to do, to have the flexibility to go on the holidays, to pick the kids up from school, whatever that looks like for you, whatever your dream looks like. The money
Yes.
is absolutely a key part of that. So why wouldn't you want your money to work better for you? And I think
Yeah,
that's the key thing, isn't it? If you
it
can make
is.
your money work better for you, then to me it's an absolute no-brainer. But it's easy for me to say because I've made all of the mistakes. I've done all of the things wrong, and I've got the key learnings and things that I've done. Does that make me perfect with money? No,
No.
absolutely doesn't. Absolutely doesn't. Um, but I think that's a key. I don't know if the word's problem or whatever it is for a lot of people, isn't it? That right at the beginning of your journey, accountancy is probably seen as a have to have. I've got to file my tax return, I've got to fill this in, I've got to do that, I've got to do that, rather than actually seeing that as a thing that is going to add value to you and your business. And I think that is
Yeah.
probably, I mean, obviously you have to overcome that with your clients, but that is a key thing, isn't it? At the beginning, it's almost like it's an expense you've got to pay for rather than one that is of benefit to you. I don't know if you see that.
Yeah, no, I definitely do. And I think really accountants, some accountants, um, don't do the accountancy industry any favors in changing that mindset. Um, Very traditionally, for lots of different reasons that I'm not going to go into, but people have a stereotypical view of an accountant, and those accountants will be the person where you once a year they file your tax return. That's when you have connection with them or interaction with them. And between those 2 points during the year, you don't really speak to them very much. You don't hear from them unless there's a problem or you reach out because you've got a specific question. And I think it's such a shame because there's so much knowledge and information that they hold that just having a conversation, it doesn't need to be a big formal tax review or an accounts review. It can just be sitting down, having a cup of tea and a chat about what's going on in your business, what's going on in your life. Did you realize this? Did you real it can just open so many doors and so many things inside business owners' minds. And I think it's such a shame that that's it's massively underutilized, but accountants play a big part in the reason why it's underutilized.
Yeah. And that's your mission, isn't it? To change
It
that,
is.
to actually make people see that, an accountant isn't here just to tick a box for you in terms of your business. An accountant is here to help you to build your business in whatever way you want. And as you said, ultimately live that dream life.
Yeah,
And that is a
absolutely.
great thing, isn't it? But then there's the other. Let's just flip quickly before we end this
Hmm.
to the other end of the spectrum. So the people who, they know why they need an accountant, they've got an accountant, they've got money flowing around all over the place, and all of that type of stuff. But where else is the value in terms of an accountant when you're at that stage, when, perhaps you're the six-figure business owner, the multi-six, the seven-figure business owner, and you've got money coming in left, right, and centre. So we spoke about these people who've got money coming in, they know that the bills are paid. Where does an accountant sit in that relationship?
So I think that's where, and it goes back in part to you talking about making your money work for you, and that's where I think having, um, you know, you can have things like having monthly finance meetings, looking at future cash flow. It all comes down to planning for the future, doesn't it? I think that's kind of where it ends up. So, and again, going back to the previous point, and sorry, I know I'm going around in a bit of a
Yeah.
circle here, but going back to the previous point about the accountants where you're only speaking to them once a year, those accountants can't really be helping you ultimately achieve what you want to achieve because you can't do really good tax planning and things like that unless you understand from a business owner's point of view what their aspirations are in the future. So some people start a business because they want it to be a lifestyle business. Some people start a business because they want to create a multi-million pound business and sell it in 5 years. Some people don't know. Some people just want to go on 6 holidays a year, and as long as they can work 9 till 5, Monday to Friday, they never want to leave the business, and they've just got this much money coming out of it. But I think what having a different type of accountant when you're in that situation is that you can do some of that forward planning. You can look at cash flow forecasting, and what that enables you to do then is see, um, what excess cash there is in the business, what you can then do with that excess cash, invest it back into the business. What does that look like? It enables you to have all those kind of what if conversations and really kind of navigate the way the business is going to go in the next, I don't know, short to medium term, 3 to 5 years. Whereas if you're just in it, doing it, even if you've got the money come in and flown around and everything's dandy, if you don't stop and have a bit of that forward planning, that future projection, you're not going to be utilizing things in the best way. And the likelihood is that you're probably missing out on opportunities, whether that's to put that money in investment and earn a high return on it, or whether it's, I don't know, buying a new building for your business, whatever it might be. Without having those conversations and those insights into it, it won't lead you to that place. Um, and I think something I'm really passionate about is not bringing the corporate world to small businesses, but bringing some of that corporate financial mindset to small businesses, because that's ultimately what it's about. When you get into those, and I'm not talking, I'm probably talking multi-million, 400-500 million pound businesses now, but those big businesses that are out there really won't be one that doesn't, even if they're not run great, they will still have a budget process, a forecast process, a cash flow. They'll still have a 5 year plan of what the business is going to be doing, because that's what helps them navigate that ship in that way. And even though when you scale that right back to somebody who's got a small business, those same questions, maybe not to the same degree or in the same depth that you need to go, but those questions are still relevant. And thinking about those things will definitely help you get the best out of your business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, money is a key part of your business's growth story, isn't it? So, make that work for you, plan it, forward think it. You sit there and you say, I know I'm going to launch this thing, I'm going to make this much money out of it, but it's always that, and for what purpose? And I think doing that financial forecasting helps you to understand what that is. It's going to help you to invest in the right things, isn't it? Because it's going to enable you to invest in things at the right time. How often do we hear
Yes.
people saying, oh, I want to invest, but I haven't got the money? Well, have they got the money? And if they're working with their accountant closer, they might have the money. It's just how they're using that money and what they're spending it on, or they could put a plan in place to make that happen. So, yeah, I'm a massive advocate for it. And I think, it's something that everybody, as you say, should start to think about in their business. Right, we're getting right near the end. But before we go on to the final bit, I want, at the very beginning, I introduced you as the off-grid accountant. I feel like we've got to share the little bit of the story. So why are you the off-grid accountant?
Okay, so I am the off-grid accountant. So I live on a farm in Derbyshire, and the farm is off-grid, so we don't have any utility connection. So by that, we have our own wind turbine and solar panels for electricity. We've got our own well for water. My internet is a 4G SIM card. So we're very much off-grid, standalone. Um, household, I suppose we are. And I run my business from the farm. So we are actually from offices based on the farm. So we are actually an off-grid accountancy practice as well, which is a little bit exciting.
It is super, super exciting. And how unique is that? How unique. Okay, so at the end of every episode, I ask all my guests to share with us a top tip. So, what would your top tip be, Hayley?
I'm going to keep it really simple. And I'm going to say my top tip is to be organized and on top of your business finances. Schedule in. I could talk about Finance Fridays to lots of my clients. So this is where it doesn't need to be a Friday just because it works with finance, but it's time in your diary, whether it's a task on your to-do list or actual schedule time every single week, where that time of the week is finances. And this applies to everybody from somebody that's running a very small business that's just starting, right to somebody that's running a multi-million pound business. If you have time in your diary every week to do something on your finances, it will help you achieve more of what you want to achieve from your business, and it will make sure that the pain that is sometimes accountancy and tax returns is lesser.
Less of a pain. And I get that. I absolutely get that. So, Finance Fridays, love them. But if our
Yeah.
listeners want to come and learn more about you, where's the best place for them to connect?
So you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm on there as Hayley Baxter, or you can follow me on Instagram at the Off Grid Accountant.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me today. It has been fantastic chatting to you, Hayley. And thank you to everybody else for listening. We will see you next time.